Okay, where we left off in the last video was we found out the volume of Paul's tower by finding the volume of the first layer and then multiplying that by 6 because there are 6 layers to it, 6 identical layers. Now we have to do the surface area of his tower. And actually we're going to do it kind of a similar way. We're going to figure out the surface area of that first layer. We're going to figure out the outside surface area of that first layer, and we're going to multiply that by 6. And then we're going to add the top surface area and the bottom surface area to it. And we'll have the total surface area. So I'll do the work down here for B. Well, around the outside we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we have a surface area on the outside here that is 14 units squared. Okay. Now that outside is going to be the same, but we need to add 5 more layers to it, or really we need that 6 total layers. And so what we can do is we can say, well, that's the first layer, and we can multiply that by 6. All right, again, because the surface area of that first layer was 14, and then we have 6 layers, so we're multiplying it by 6. That gives me, just on the outside, we don't have top and bottom yet, but the outside surface area is 6 times 14 gives me 84 units squared. All right, so we have the entire outside of this shape now. We just need top and bottom of the shape still in here. All right, so we take a look at it. We have all the outsides done. We just need top and bottom. And so on top we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so we have 7 on top, which means we'll have 7 on bottom. And so to add to our 84, we have to add 14 from 7 on top, 7 on bottom. And we should end here with 98 units squared as my surface area. All right, so our answer on that was 98 units squared. And we're going to see that again in part C. When we do 1 and 2, we'll see kind of that same method again. Let's read the beginning of C though. Paul's tower is an example of a prism, so vocab word there, prism, because it is a solid and it has 2 faces that they call bases. So it has a top and a bottom. The bases are the top and the bottom, and those bases are congruent and parallel to each other, meaning that like if you extended them forever, they would never run into each other, and that they're exactly the same shape on top as they are on bottom. And for it to be a prism, it must also have sides that connect those bases, and those are called the lateral faces. And so this would be like your lateral face, and each lateral face must be a parallelogram, meaning it could be a rectangle, it could be a rhombus, it could be a square, but it must be some type of parallelogram. And so you need these congruent parallel bases, and those parallel bases need to be connected by some kind of parallelogram. Okay, and actually in 1, 2, and 3 here we see that, and in 1, 2, and 3 we need to find the volume, the surface area of these different prisms, and this is probably the most applicable part, the most important part of this lesson here is doing these 3 here. All right, so in 1, what we have, and we'll put them down here. So 1, let's start with volume, the volume of 1, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to talk about the first layer, and then I'm going to multiply it by how many layers there are. And so the volume of the first layer, I'll start with the top ones because it's easier to see. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a height. And so you take 4 times 5, and you get a volume that is equal to 20 units cubed. Just by taking like the 1, 2, 3, 4 from that layer, multiplying it by 5 layers. Okay, now for surface area of this shape, same kind of thing, just a few more steps. We have that, we want to do that surface area around, and then we're going to add the top and the bottom to it. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have a surface area around of 10, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of that, and so we have surface area here. We have 10 times 5 giving me 50, And now we just need to add the top and the bottom, and the top has 4, the bottom has 4, and so that's adding 8 to it. And so we do 50 plus 8, and we get 58 units squared, units squared because it's a surface area. We're going to do the same kind of thing with 2 here. We have, we'll start with volume for 2, just like we did with number 1. Number 2, the volume is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cubes in that top layer, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, and so we have 6 times 4, giving me 24 units cubed as the volume. Okay, and we'll do surface area right after. Surface area will be, we'll do that distance around the surface area around, and then we'll add top and bottom like we did last time. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have that surface area around of 12, and that has 4 layers to it. So 4 times 12, or 12 times 4, gives me 48. 48 around. Now we just need to add top and bottom, and the top has, top has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 on top, 6 on bottom, so I got to add 12 to this. And so for surface area, you end up with 60 units squared for number 2. And moving to 3, I am going to do the volume a little bit different this time because I can't count the cubes. And so I'm going to use a method I actually talked about here in this problem. I'm going to multiply the length times the width times the height. And so what I'll do is 4 from the length, 3 times the width, and 5 times the height. I'm just going to multiply that for my volume. So it's a different kind of strategy here. And so volume here, you get 4 times 3 times 5. And that should give me, oh, I keep losing it here. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 5 is 60. So I get 60 units cubed as my volume. And now for surface area of this one, I am just going to, I'll do the same kind of thing. I am going to find the area of all 4 of the lateral faces and then add the 2 bases to them. And so this lateral face here is 4, and then this is 5. And so 4 times 5 gives me an area of 20. I'm going to erase this, kind of looks like a 5. On this side here, we have 3 times 5, that's 15. And on the top, we have 4 by 3 on top, so that's 12 on top. I just need to add these up. The front here is the same as the back, so that's 20 plus 20. It is 20 plus 20. The right side is the same as the left side, and the right side is 15, so the left side is 15, which is 15 plus 15. And then the top is the same as the bottom, and that's 12 plus 12 from top and bottom. Now if I add all these up, I should have my surface area. 20 plus 20 is 40. 40 plus 15 is 55. 55 plus 15 is 70. 70 plus 12 is 82. 82 plus another 12 is 94, and that's 94 units squared for my surface area. Okay, moving kind of quickly through those, but I want to finish it in this video. Hopefully you can understand those strategies. When we have the blocks, we're able to count them and multiply by layers. When we don't have the block showing, volume becomes a multiplication of length times width times height, and surface area becomes finding the area of each lateral face and each base and just adding them all up. Okay. We'll move on here to 17 and 18 and hopefully get these done pretty quickly. Alright, we're going to find the volume of each solid here. And we're going to start with A, And my one for A, I am just going to add up all the blocks that I have in this shape. And I think I'm going to do that on a calculator for time reasons. Okay, after putting it in my calculator, I just added up all the blocks. So I did 0 plus 3 plus 5 plus 22. I did all of them in my calculator, and I get a volume of 134 units cubed. All right, for this one here, I am going to assume that we're going to fold this back up. I'm going to make this part right here my base. And so that is a 2 by 4 base. And when we start folding this, it looks like we'll have a height of 3 from right here. And so to find volume, it is length times width times height. And so I get 4 times 3 times 2. And that gives me an answer. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24 units cubed. All right. And now the last one here, I will do again. This is length times width times height, so 3 times 3, and then 3 down here. But what I have to notice is that there's going to be 3 cubes missing from the center. So this kind of is a hollow shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the volume as if it wasn't missing those, and then I'm going to subtract away 3. And so what I get is, and I'm going to do it down below because I'm going to run out of room otherwise, is I get, I'll put down here part C. I get 3 times 3 times 3 from length times width times height, and that gives me 27. That gives me 27 as a volume, but I am missing 3 cubes. I'm missing 3 cubes from the center right here, so I got to subtract those away. Minus 3 cubes here, and so my volume is really 24 units cubed for part C. Another way we could have found volume is we could have really just counted the cubes. We could have said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we could have said, well, that's 8 cubes in that first layer. There's 3 layers, and so we'll just multiply it by 3. Either way would have worked. We would have got 24 units cubed. And that one's nice because we have the blocks and can count them. Sometimes we cannot count them. All right, last problem here. We have a tower that is made up of 312 blocks, and the first layer of the tower is made up of 13 blocks. All right, and so we want to know how tall is the tower. Well, there is 312 total blocks. All right, so that's total blocks. Each layer has 13, and so we just divide here. You take your 312, you divide them by 13 for each layer, and you're just going to be left with the number of layers that are left. And so 312 divided by 13, that gives me 24 layers. And if I wanted to check my work on this one to make sure it's right, well, if I have 24 layers and each layer has 13 blocks, then I can just do 24 times 13, and that gives me 312, which is what I wanted to see. All right, now that only works because the layers are identical and are exactly the same. But we're able to do it, and that one's nice and quick. All right. If you'd like to, on here, write your learning log, just maybe talk about, when it's talking about finding volume, maybe talk about the 2 different ways, because we did see it where you have sometimes can count blocks. Sometimes you have to use length times width times height, especially when you see it in terms of like a net. It helps to do length times width times height. Or if you see it in terms of a complete solid like we saw here. But maybe write something here or make a note to yourself, the 2 different ways we found volume. Maybe make a note about how we were finding surface area here today too, something quick and easy that will help you remember it. Other than that, that's all I have for videos today. If you have any additional questions, please email me.